So I will do a brief presentation about my background, and then I leave it to you for questions and everything. I studied in Italy. I studied finance. I graduated in 2010. Worst year to graduate in finance. So I wanted to work in a bank, but it was impossible. So after many rejections, when I was relatively lucky in finding a internship at Google. Google was at the time, probably also now, it's hiring a lot. So I always wanted to, I was always interested in companies, in industry with high growth, because my thought was, if I go in an industry with high growth, the likelihood that then I will be exposed to ideas where I can actually build a company will be higher. So once I failed big banks, I entered I tried with big online groups, and I was quite lucky to get an internship at Google. Then I got hired, and I worked there in sales for about 1 year and a half. Working in sales at Google was quite funny. One thing was to get exposure to the culture of Google, that, as you know, is very interesting. One thing was to see how inefficient can be a company like Google, thanks to the fact that it's based on a monopoly. Because if every company on earth were run as Google, every company would be bankrupt. They can do what they do, like free food, creativity, and everything. Of course, this is my opinion. Only because they are based on a very successful business, on the search, that they have no competition. So my opinion is that they can do what they do in terms of employees' happiness and everything, because they are so successful with their own with their core business, and not the opposite, at least for the moment. And then after about 2 years at Google, I was a bit tired of doing sales, so I left and I started my own company, basically using everything I learned in these 2 years. I spent 2 years working with mid-size entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs. So I started to build a feel for what it works and what it doesn't work online, at least online. That was what I knew, how it worked. So I started to use everything I learned there to build a small company. So I focused on all those businesses that I knew that required very little cash investment, very low capital investment, and I started it with my savings. It was like 50,000 euro, so very small amount, and it was something very focused on being profitable. So I focused on all the business that I saw were really profitable, without a big complexity, without a big investment capital, big capital investments. So I did the software download, advertising arbitrage, mobile app affiliation, and this business is still running. It's still quite profitable. We're talking about between 500,000 and 1 million of euro in yearly revenue, with a profit margin of 10-15%. So it's not a big business. It's run with 3-4 people maximum. It's profitable. It gives like a steady income. Very difficult to expand. Then after about 1 year and a half, with only working on this small profitable company, I chose to also do something more complex. So I joined Rocket Internet. In particular, I had some friends inside Zalora, which is a big fashion e-commerce in Southeast Asia. Started in 2012. Now it's almost even a bit earlier. So now it has been in the market for more than 2 years, almost 3 years. Rocket Internet, what do? Is basically they bet on business models that they know they work. They bet on the replicability of these business models. They just they managed to raise a lot of money, they invest all this money in specific businesses, and then they apply very good execution skills. Like in terms of e-commerce, they have all the experts about e-commerce on basically every channel, from managing the newsletter to managing the paid marketing to buying the right products, and so on. So I joined Zalora, where now I have been working for more than 1 year as a managing director for Malaysia, and now I also run marketing here in Hong Kong. So this is a bit of story. Now I think you can start with the questions.
Yeah, Mr. Luca, I mean, I've visited Zalora a couple of times. It's quite a wonderful website, quite convenient because I like to buy stuff online. I don't walk a lot. What I would like to know is that, in your view, right, what are the key components a person needs in order to start an online business? Like, not an online, okay, both online retail and a website.
Okay, they are very different. If you inside online business is very generic. So inside you find really everything. You find from small businesses that are like very profitable, very small, very cash oriented, until big e-commerces like Zalora, where you need at least 5 years burning a high amount of cash in order to build the market share, and then you will finally exploit your position in the market. So it's very different inside online business. In my opinion, what you need to be successful in business is always a bit of dirty advantage. So you have to know something that the people around you don't know. It can be like so I give you an example. For a rocket internet, the dirty advantage is that the business model, for sure, it will work because it's very well known. So we know that people shop online. We know that the e-commerce in the US or in China is 10% of the total retail trade. And we know that in Hong Kong is only 3-4%, and we know that in Indonesia is like less than 1%. So we just bet that all these countries will follow the normal pattern, and then it's just a matter of going there with the right amount of money and replicating all the good practice, all the best practices that you perfectly know, because you just have to hire experts from existing e-commerces in Europe. You can easily, it's not easy, but you can do it. You can hire all the best, you put them in a room, and then you just have to replicate the business model with the right amount of investment. If you're interested in doing online retail, my suggestion is to do something small. Unless you manage to raise a big amount of money, probably the good way to start is going a niche. So in e-commerce, or you go extremely big and you accept to have like 5 years of loss and you need many tens of millions of venture capital, or the best thing is to go niche, to do something small, something that you really know, some products that you know much better than people around you. So you always need what I call dirty advantage, what books they call it a competitive advantage, not to use the word dirty, but you need to know something, you need some secrets that people around you don't know. So in the case of, for instance, of Rocket, it's about betting the right amount of money on known business models. For instance, for my own company, it was knowing about all the things that you need to know in order to be profitable in a short time, because I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs while I was inside Google. I was selling them the advertising. I knew what they were making money out of. So you always need something that you know that on that thing can be even small to be successful, but you need something that is totally different from other people. You need a dirty secret.
Based on your professional situation, I want to know whether there is differences in terms of the marketing characteristic or the marketing structure of the Asian, especially China, when compared with the foreign West country.
Yeah, I think that in general in China I don't know because I have experience in Southeast Asia and Hong Kong. What really works, what works much better here than in Europe, at least for retail, I'm talking about what I know, is people are very sharks. We are very they are very deals hunters. Like if you look at Groupon, Groupon is much more successful in Asia than in the Western world. So here people will really look for deals. Like if you put a 20% off in Europe, usually this is something that makes your brand dirty, makes your brand like less interesting. Here no, here it doesn't happen. Here people tend to like it more. So this is one of the key characteristics that make it different to do online marketing here versus in Europe or in the US. Yeah.
So what is the whole theory behind such a strategy?
Well, the main strategy here, it comes from ops, because if we have a warehouse here, it will be much faster to ship to all these countries around, regardless of the fact that they are rich or poor. You will just have to change the prices. The products more or less will be the same. You change the prices according to the market where you are selling to, but still you manage to ship in 1 or 2 days, while Hong Kong people, if they want to buy online from, let's say, ASUS, takes like 1 week or more, while for Zalora. So that is simply because of that. Also, Hong Kong, the e-commerce market is quite fragmented. Compared to Europe, there is still not a clear leader on fashion. Of course, in terms of e-commerce, it's very different from doing Hong Kong and Singapore versus Malaysia or Indonesia. Acquiring customers is much easier in developing countries because they are cheaper, but then the repurchase rate is much lower. So there are some differences, but the key thing is that also in Singapore and in Hong Kong, there is no real big incumbent, at least for fashion. And it's the same in Indonesia, Malaysia, in the developing countries. And we have a warehouse in the area, so it's very quick. Of course, we are not in China, for instance, where the situation is totally different. Yeah.
So logistics is one problem in Hong Kong. How did you overcome that?
We ship from Singapore, actually. To Hong Kong, we ship from Singapore. We have warehouses in Malaysia and in Singapore. Yes, one of the difficult things about shipping from Malaysia are the customs. That's why Singapore, even if the costs of having a warehouse there are quite high, in the short term is a good solution. Sorry?
How about in the long term? Do you have any plans?
In the long term, for sure, the shipments will all be done from developing countries because the workforce is much cheaper. But to do that, you need specific arrangements with the local government to ship without paying the taxes. So it's mainly a legal issue. So you have to run a model to see like if it's better to run it from Singapore without the taxes to ship to Hong Kong, or to pay taxes from like Indonesia or Malaysia to ship to Hong Kong, saving money on the factory workers. Sure.
Question: would the free trade zone in China affect your business strategy in terms of logistics?
I'm very afraid of the Chinese competition.
So would Singapore or like overseas operation be one of your?
Yes, still this is the plan. Still this will be the plan. Consider that, of course, I'm very worried about Tmall, these kind of companies, of course. But Hong Kong customers, they tend to like a more curated experience compared to the pure Chinese style websites. So what we see is that there's still very good interest from here. So for the moment we are going to keep pushing also on Singapore and Hong Kong. Actually we are much bigger in Singapore and Hong Kong than in Vietnam or Indonesia, because this I mean, you saw Zalora, it's not about a long tail e-commerce, it's curated e-commerce. We only have 20,000, 30,000 styles on the website. All the styles you see more or less are beautiful. So it's completely different from Taobao, completely different model. As soon as we reach 30,000 styles, we cut it. So we don't want to go too deep. We want to keep the experience of a shopper very curated. It's very different from the initial e-commerce models of Alibaba, of Amazon. The strategy was, let's put everything online, customers will choose. In the last 3-4 years, the strategy for a lot of e-commerce has changed a lot towards more curated content. So you will see that compared to a website like Taobao, the time spent on websites such as ASOS or Zalora is much higher. So there is also advantage in having people doing window shopping on these websites, not only with a pattern. I search something on Google or on Baidu in the case, I go on the website, if I find the best deal, I buy it, otherwise I leave. The model is very different for a lot of fashion companies. It's more about like having a curated experience. So you know that, like when you go to a store, you know that when you go on Zalora, more or less you will find always good stuff. Maybe you will not have such a big choice of clothes, but at the end it's fast fashion. So our bet is not so important to have 100,000 different styles. Go for a curated content. You know that in 5-10 minutes you will find at least one dress that you like. The same way you go to H&M when you go offline, when you go into the stores.
Yeah, I'm just interested in, I mean, you came from like your own startup, so like, it's a pretty big company, like the company that you're working on right now. So like the type of marketing that you used in like the startup, it must have been way different than, like you're saying, you guys have to burn millions of, like it's a way different way.
Totally different.
Yeah, so how do you apply, let's say, some of the, entrepreneurial thing?
Okay, so it's totally different. Like with my own company, I have to be super careful at how I spend the money. I have to be super careful at the cent, because I don't have big funding behind, and I have to be profitable at the end of the day. So if I invest 10 euro, then I have to get 13 euro by end of the month. At Zalora, I have to get those 13 euros in 3 years because I have funding. So it's totally different, and the channels that work are totally different. On my company, I only do search marketing because it converts very fast. AdWords, yeah, absolutely. My own company do 90% is AdWords, bidding on long tail keywords because they are extremely cheap. Zalora is totally different. On Zalora is e-commerce, so I don't have any specific advantage. I have to cover well every single channel. So from paid marketing to public relations, I have to cover all the channels very carefully. So for Zalora, I can tell you that the channels that we do are, of course, paid marketing on Google, Facebook, and everything. More or less, I can give you that 20-25% of our traffic and revenue comes from there. Then SEO, so we have a team. Again, we are talking about 20-30% more of the traffic and revenue comes from there. Then we are super strong in corporate partnership, which means that we distribute vouchers and we try to, or we give promotions. We serve the base of big banks, big telcos, and of retailers. So if you go to a 7-Eleven in Hong Kong, you can purchase a Zalora gift cards. This is an example. Or if you are a Standard Charter customer, you will receive billing insert. Billing insert is something that we invented. So billing insert works like this. We put a promotion when you open the bank statement, you will find a Zalora voucher. Why the bank does it? The bank does it because it's e-commerce, so it will increase the usage of their credit cards. For us, it's a way to reach 1 million of Hong Kong people with a specific promotion. For a big e-commerce like Zalora, yes, it's about paid marketing, SEO, corporate partnership, very, very big, public relations, fashion shows. Public relations means feeding the media with content. So journalists need the content. So if you just create a compelling story, something that they want to talk about, then you end up in the magazine for free, completely free, because you're doing a favor to them. You're giving them content. So if you create content which is interesting enough for them, they will feature it, and it will be totally free. They will not ask you for money if the story that you're giving them is interesting enough. Then for e-commerce, one more thing that works unbelievably well is the CRM. The old email, which sounds extremely boring, actually is much better than Facebook. Like if you do a Facebook post for e-commerce, it will be completely useless. Email, it's a fantastic channel. Email partnerships gives me 20% of the revenue. Email gives me another 20%, and we covered all the 100% of the revenue. 10% is what's left, a bit of affiliates, a bit of organic and everything. But the CRM, so the newsletter, which sounds boring, it's not. Newsletter, corporate partnerships, paid advertising, and SEO are by far the big channels. The problem with e-commerce is that you have to cover all of them, so it's extremely tiring. You have to hire a lot of people. If you have a niche e-commerce, a small e-commerce, then you know exactly where your niche is, and it's easy, you just go after them. If you sell all the clothes, it's a nightmare. It's extremely complicated. You have to have one person which is good at PR, one person which is good at paid marketing. It's extremely. You have a person who has to call the banks to put the vouchers inside their billing inserts. So it's very difficult. If you know where is your niche, where your small target, then more or less you know exactly how to go. You go to their events, you go to their trade shows and everything. Yeah.
Looking at your own company, right? What I want to know is the profitability of the online advertisement. Yeah, how?
It's very difficult. Depends on how you run it. So my company is based on buying a cheap traffic and reselling it to publishers. So I'm reselling it to big advertisers. So let's say that you are WeChat, you want to get a lot of downloads of your app. Let's say in India, but WeChat is not so good at running Google AdWords because they are in China, because they don't know exactly what to do. So if you know exactly what works on Google AdWords in terms of pushing app downloads, then you can work with Tencent, giving them a lot of cheap installs. This is a example of what I do. But every single business, you have to find the marketing channel that works for you. There are no two businesses that work the same. More or less, I can tell you that if you are lucky and if you have a business that people look for that keyword, probably search advertising is one of the best, because it's a very effective tool. You can bid, so you can choose how much you spend. So it's not a bad, especially to run a test, to understand if your product is something that people want. In general, I think Google AdWords is a good channel. Also, it's easy to manage. It's very scalable. But it really depends on what kind of business you do. And in my opinion, the best is to do a bit of assumptions on what are the channels that work for you, because they could be like event. Maybe the best thing to do is just to go to events of your field and talk with people, give them like free vouchers of your small e-commerce, this kind of stuff. Or it could be just selling. If you are B2B, a lot of one of the best channels sometimes is selling on the phone. So it really depends on your business. If I have to look at it in a strategic way, what I would suggest is you create a list of all the channels that you see that business do in terms of marketing. So online marketing, SEO, PR, events, cold calling on the phone. Let's say that there are 20 channels. when you make assumption on what are the best for your business, you can think about what are the best 6, and then you start the testing. If they work, then you keep focusing on that. You cannot test all of 20 because you don't have the money to do it. So you have to have a bit of business sense and to get it right. But you don't have to get it right immediately. You can still, from 20 channels, you can go to 6 channels, and then out of those 6 channels, you test those 6, and you find that 3 maybe they are the good thing, the good channels for you. Yeah, be super open to every possible channel, because it's not, maybe search for you doesn't work because you invented something that people don't know, people don't search for it, but it's fantastic business, so you just have to do something different. Let's say I give you an example, like the, you know that annoying Mac cleaner, right? Mac Cleaner is a huge company and is extremely profitable. It's a fantastic business. It's the perfect business. It's like a fake software with a landing page, curated a lot of A/B tests on the landing page. Nobody's looking for Mac Cleaner. Everybody hates Mac Cleaner, right? So it's all about having a good banner which moves a lot, which attracts your attention. People click on that. They go on a landing page which is very compelling, and then they optimize the company. It's a East Europe company. They optimized a lot on the how basically to trick people to make them click on the ad, so they know exactly what's their ad that works. They know exactly what they have to do to have a quick download, and then they make the final purchase after some days when people for some reason they convert. So like they have the Mac Cleaner for free. The Mac, I don't know if it's because of them, the Mac actually becomes slow, and then they finally make the purchase to buy the Mac Cleaner Pro. So they tested and they optimized every single piece of the funnel, and this is well, for them is a fantastic business. I wouldn't recommend to start at such a company, but at the end so you understand what I mean. Yeah.
With regard to the marketing research, apart from the traditional methodologies like rating, is there some innovative convenient methodology for you to doing some marketing research, such as like effectively using the social media or doing some data mining on specific kinds of data?
I think that search ads are a good thing because you know exactly what to do. You just have to think about the keywords of your business, and then you can acquire traffic. Like one thing that you could do, for instance, to understand if before launching your business, okay? Let's say that you want to understand if there is interest in your business, you can create a landing page with no real product behind. So you are not selling anything, but you start driving traffic. So you put a bit of money in advertising and you drive traffic to your page, and then you see if people actually click. Maybe you don't have a product, you pretend you sold it. So you have a fake, let's say that you set up a fake e-commerce, and you put a bit of money to see how many people actually convert. Then if people actually are buying, then you will build the actual e-commerce. So this is a possibility. Other tools, I'm not very expert about market research, but this could be a trick, and is an easy one. You could try something similar on advertising. Is good overall. It's a bit expensive sometimes, but at least you are fast. Or let's say like 1 month ago, I saw a big fashion app. Where, I don't know if it's in Hong Kong is big, written where. It's a Japanese app, a fashion app, like a fashion social network, which is quite nice. And I saw that they are distributing leaflets on the seats of fashion shows all over Southeast Asia. They are only in 3 markets. They are only in Japan, where they are big, Taiwan, I think a bit of Singapore. I don't know if they are also in Hong Kong. Anyway, I saw these leaflets in fashion shows in Jakarta, in KL, in a lot of places in Southeast Asia. So I assume that they are just doing tests this way. So they just send packages of leaflets to the fashion shows all over Southeast Asia, and then according probably to the response they see, they will choose which markets to prioritize. Because I saw there were leaflets in markets where they did no marketing at all. So I think that, for instance, that would be a way of marketing research. You have to be creative. There is no shortcut. Think a bit about where are your potential customers and go there.
It was very interesting about talking about validating your business before starting with a landing page or platform. Do you have other recommendations or advice on this?
This is one. So use events, promote your stuff at events, even if your stuff doesn't exist, nobody will realize, and you will get the data almost for free. I don't have a list of examples, but I think that the trick will be, where are your potential customers, where are they, and how can I get to them in the cheapest way possible. You don't necessarily have to have already the product. You can do something, you can advertise something free, you can reach them with something free to get the response of the market. This could be a first thing.
If you have a landing page, what is the conversion rate you usually...
It depends a lot. For e-commerce, if you have a conversion rate between 1 and 3%, you are doing well. 1-4%, you're doing well. If it's extremely niche, probably you have to be around the 3-4, more than 1-2. But it really depends on the business, because if it's luxury, then probably it's lower. If it's lead generation, let's say for a loan company, it should be around between 5 and 10%, just for leaving your numbers. So let's say between 1 and 10%, but it changes dramatically according to the business you are pushing. You can find ways to have benchmarks. You can ask the employees of a competitor. You can have ideas, even if it's not public information. You can source it. Yeah.
And another question about, can you give some recommendation to get better in SEO, like for a startup? How do you get your website?
SEO is low, so you cannot use SEO to do market research, because it would take 3 months, and Google is smart. If you don't have a good product, they will know, while they will always accept your money to buy cheap ads. You don't have to buy the top position, you can buy the cheap, low position too, and you have the traffic of the top position and of the low is the same. The quality is exactly the same. It's only the cost that changes, but you can play a lot with it. So to do a test, you don't have to go to the top. You can just position low, you get exactly the same results in terms of conversion rate and everything. What changes is the cost and the reach. So companies that pay a lot, they pay a lot to get a lot of traffic, not to get a better traffic. Google sales, they will always tell you that you have to bid high to have low quality traffic, but this is not true. The quality is more or less the same. It's more or less the same.
You have 20 other tips like this that you can write on the whiteboard.
No.
That's amazing. Just one question. Are you an SEO expert? Because you're...
SEO?
Have you received the training in SEO?
No.
You learn by experiencing the task?
At Zalora, I do SEO, but I have a team doing for me, so I know how it works, but I never got my hands really dirty at it. So I wouldn't say that I'm an expert. I understand the basics to run the team, to make sure that they work hard, and that's it. But for instance, I could never build a company based on SEO, because I don't have any dirty advantage on SEO, while I could build a company on paid advertising, because I know a lot of dirty tricks on paid advertising. Yeah.
So your team manages a lot of different channels for
Yes.
marketing and
Yeah.
actually advertising. So you said that, I remember you mentioned that because you used to target the niche. So what niche are you referring to? Are you referring to the niche order or the niche group of audience or audience?
Could be both. Could be both. Could be both. I don't know, if it depends on
Actually, a bit of personal sharing. I always see your advertisement on the Facebook. I'm wondering whether I'm the target group.
Probably you like the competitor, or you like some shopping pages, then we are targeting you. Or maybe one thing that works very well is Facebook Exchange. which is retargeting. So basically, maybe you visit once Zalora, and then with Zalora ads follow you both on the websites, both on Facebook. It's very effective for e-commerce. Retargeting is a very good channel.
My friend and I love Zalora very much.
I give you a voucher, man.
How do you see the business models changing in e-commerce? Because before it was more like the ads, but don't you think it will change more and more?
Yes, for especially for okay, you cannot base a successful business on paid online advertising. You can't. There are very few companies that make it, like Mac Cleaner, but there are very few exceptions. And at the end, it will always be a very risky business that will always depend on only a couple of partners, Facebook or Google. So depends. You can do it for the short term to make money, but I wouldn't recommend it as a long-term strategy to build a sustainable business. The good thing of advertising is that it gives you that boost at the beginning that you otherwise you cannot have. You cannot have, because all the other channels are very slow. SEO, for instance, is low. Events, it can be. You can, but no. I think that in general, even if you go niche, it's very important to do events, to do PR, to do a lot of offline, old school marketing channels. Yeah, they can work amazingly well. Yeah.
But it interests me, like platforms like LinkedIn, how they make like the money. They don't use a lot of ads, I think. They
LinkedIn.
are based on the premium membership.
Yes, LinkedIn has 3 revenue sources, if I'm not mistaken. The LinkedIn Pro, then some advertising, very expensive, and then something else. But I think more or less they are these 2 models. So both inside, both for advertisers. I mean, finding the way to monetize, like we are talking about very different models. Like these are like the huge American business that afforded to be unprofitable for maybe 5 years. They build the product first, they build the user base, and then after 3 years they start thinking about how to monetize, and they test a lot of different ways. Like now, for instance, it will be interesting to see how Tinder will monetize because now Tinder is free, but I think that Tinder in maybe some months, after you swiped a bit of girls, I think that you will be blocked. They will ask you money to keep Tindering. I think this could be a way. This is what I would do if I were doing the monetization of Tinder. Or maybe they will find something less invasive way. I don't know. In this case, what they do, they start with some assumptions, some basic ideas, and then they start the testing. Yeah.
But if you, for instance, start a new Tinder, how do you like cope with the fact to sustain in a business if you don't have revenue? If it's only
You need funding.
Like a customer.
You need funding. You need funding. You have
So
you burn your own savings to build a prototype. You do something with it. You show a bit of traction, a bit of interest, and then you need to ask for money if you don't have your own money. Money is needed. Very few businesses are start with for free. Mac Cleaner is one.
I have a question. I never asked you one. About your personal time management, how do you organize yourself between a fast-growing multinational, tough, run by Germans company and a cool, passionate startup that you grow, and I guess it's like your little kid, so you want to make it well. How do you do it? Like you have weekends? Are you structured as you look, or is it just a bit of a mess? Or
It's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a mess. I think that a bit of structure would be good. I use a structure to manage my time at Zalora. For that, I'm very structured. Otherwise, I go crazy. For my own company, it comes natural. So for my own company, it's not a problem to find the time. At Zalora, the inputs are so many because the business is so complicated, so complex, that I need to structure my time. And also, if you in a big company, like in theory, you can just look at the email flow and you do nothing else. You just run, okay? I try not to do that, so I try to answer my emails only between 3 and 6 because I know that I'm less productive between the late afternoon. While in the morning, I just keep a email AI and make sure that the CEO doesn't call me or there is nothing that is exploding. Otherwise, I don't answer email in the morning. So in the morning, I force myself to create things. So if I have an idea, I work with a team to realize the idea, to do the test. If there's something that we want to do, I will dedicate at least half of the day to that thing, and then I will answer email. So I will do the reactive part of the business in few hours. So I force myself not to check the email in the morning, not to open the emails. I'm not fast at answering emails at all. I'm fast if you consider one day, but it's tough to get a reply in 30 minutes because this is it's a structure that works very well for me. For instance, inside Zalora is something that makes me good at execution, while a lot of managers are maybe very clever people, but they are not so good at getting things done. And it's normal because with maybe 9,000 emails per month, it's normal not to be good at getting things done. You just have to read the email. If you printed them, it would be like a Bible every month of quantity. Yes, a structuring time I think is important to divide your day between the reactive part and the creative part, execution part. Yeah.
Are we done, guys? More questions?
Maybe is there any big project that you can maybe disclose a little bit that you are now?
Now at the moment I'm just running what I created in the past, and my time is full with Zalora. So now at the moment, no, I don't have any big project. No, I don't have any specific hot business in mind now. Otherwise, I would do it.
But any inspiration, any trend that you could maybe foresee a little bit that if you had the time you could bet on it? E-commerce or internet, like taking into account that the technology is growing exponentially, I think, faster than we can even perceive. Because nowadays, an app is already telling me what music do I have to listen to, and I don't know the name of the band.
Yeah, at the moment I don't have anything in mind. It's one of the things that I do in my spare free time. I'm looking for new opportunities and for new ideas. One of the reasons actually I joined Zalora is that I ran out of ideas for my own company.
I was watching an interview from Stephen Hopkins, this guy that is in a wheelchair, and he was stating, between brackets, that technology could evolve quicker than the human kind, therefore humankind could become obsolete. This technology could evolve without humans, so they could auto-create themselves, kind of a matrix.
Yeah, but I think that anyway the creative part will be always difficult to replicate.
Artificial intelligence.
But the create, I don't know. If they build a machine that is more creative than humans, would be challenging.
Not creative, but it's more intelligent. So at the end,
Oh, that of course. That of course. Most of the functions we have, like I prefer to buy softwares than to hire more people. Yeah. Yeah.
This moment that software will auto evolve.
This means that creative jobs will be more requested than so all the boring jobs that we do now, like a lot of finance, a lot of accounting. I think that there will be less request for these jobs, and there will be more demand for creative stuff, from design to also management is extremely creative job. So design, management. But I think that it's a good thing because it will kill a lot of the boring jobs. Like Even paid marketing now, it's all run by computers. Like Google AdWords, for instance, it's all the good companies, they all do with softwares. The person just inputs the, okay, so now let's take paid marketing. I talk about it because it's an industry that I know, just because of this. So at the moment, if you are doing paid marketing in a good company, it just means that you have to be creative about where are the people on Facebook that you want to target. What are the keywords that could work? What are the new products? Every month comes a new product. Which are the new products that could work? That's it. But you don't change the bids. You don't do anything manual. You buy a software, usually very expensive software, that takes like 2-3% of your marketing budget. Will make sense if not for small companies, but for big companies makes sense. And then the only thing that you do is one, ideas about new tests to improve the efficiency of your advertising. Two, meeting salespeople who sell you new types of product that someone else created. So there is, for instance, in online marketing, there is no more anything boring. Like you don't copy paste links. There are tools that read your page and they create it, and then you just have to say yes or no. And so it's yeah, no, I think that for it will be an increase of creative job demand, and overall it's a good thing. Yeah.
You know, but I think that means that a lot of people that is boring between brackets. For some people boring, for the people excited. Some people get excited looking at the balance sheet. So for those people that are accountants and the jobs that can be replaced, I think they will also have to recycle or update themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. When I write, like I do a lot of job interviews at Zalora because I have a team of 40 people. So even with a good retention rate, every month I have someone leaving and someone entering. And I always have a section of the interview which is just pure creativity. Like, tell me what comes to your mind if I say desk and the door, and I see randomly what they come out with. Because it's what makes the difference. But also, like for balance sheets at the end, it's you can see from the number like a new strategy. Just looking at the numbers, for instance, like the difference between a lot of e-commerces is that like how much you can lose in a short period of time. Some e-commerces are more like very careful, they follow their business plan, they always make sure not to kill their margins too much, while totally different strategy, you lose everything until you are the first in the market, and then all of a sudden you charge, like Taobao. It worked very well, they kicked out eBay. And that was something that you have to read the big loss on the balance sheet. So, no, for instance, management jobs, super creative jobs.
Yeah.
They are the opposite of,
Exactly.
yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is that I think the trend with the exponential rate that the technology is growing, the problem is that is going to have a huge impact on the employment situation, unemployment to be more precise. So that will translate that a lot of jobs will disappear, or people will have to adapt themselves to the new technology. So what
It's possible, yes.
Accountancy, debit, credit, that doesn't work anymore. You need to know the program. You need to know how to be
Yeah, for sure.
flexible to understand the
For
business
sure.
model, which is continuously
For sure, and often the colleagues who are not at that speed usually have issues. Also at Zalora, I can say that you see it, that who's not fast enough, then he will have issues in, even if it's hard worker, he will have issue in keeping up with the speed. Yes, so I agree. But it's, yeah.
Excuse me. How do you see like the offline world merging with the e-commerce world?
More and more.
Regarding the
More and
shopping experience?
More and more.
Yeah.
More and more. I spend only 20% of my 30% of my time running Zalora on the online side. All the rest, I'm meeting banks, I'm meeting telcos, I'm meeting e-commerce, I'm meeting malls. Now, one thing that I do, basically I don't know where to find the new customers for Zalora because we spend so much on Google AdWords and on Facebook that if I increase the budget, I don't find new customers. So I saturated the online channel. So now I'm setting stores inside the malls. And then what I do, I've opened 3 stores in malls just selling clothes to see if I had a new channel. I don't know. It didn't work. So yes, it was profitable, but the problem was that it was not scalable. So the online is growing so fast that it makes no sense to open 10 stores. So what I'm doing now, I put the clothes inside the malls, inside the stores. Then I put the computer, the internet connection. People take the clothes. I have the sales assistant. They scan it, and then they make the purchase online. It's working quite well, because the cost of acquiring customers on advertising sometimes is so high that a lot of times it's just cheaper to go to a mall, you rent a space, and you get people to sign up to your website then instead of acquiring them online. So for instance, for e-commerce, people come to the store, they go to the fitting room, then with a piece of cloth, they go to the cashier. At the cashier, they cannot buy, but they have to open an account, so I get a new customer on the website. And then I ship the day after, they will receive the cloth. So they cannot leave the store with a piece of cloth, they will receive it the day after. This is something that we are doing in the US. I'm trying. I still don't have a strategy to open 10 stores. I'm still running the numbers to see if it's doable. But yes, this is an example. I deeply believe in the integration between online and offline. Yeah.
I ask this because I'm really interested in the e-commerce, but I don't want to buy pants online.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to try it myself, and then I will buy it. But
Yeah.
if you can have the offline stores, I would go and
Yeah.
be a new customer.
Yeah. The thing is that still offline, even in Southeast Asia, is growing so and so. Online is booming. So a digital first, a lot of times is not bad. Online shops are growing much faster than offline. So offline can be a way to help the digital part. But a lot of business, they are perfect or completely offline. I'm not talking about them just because it's not my experience, but they could be perfect and they could have almost no online presence apart from just a website.
Yeah, but there's gonna be always an online or tech component.
Could be, but not necessarily the dirty advantage. So the competitive advantage will not necessarily be online. Also because online is very open. Online is very easy to get the information. So having a dirty advantage online is very, very difficult.
No, but you can have a dirty advantage offline.
Yeah, exactly.
Online.
Exactly. So let's say that you have, people who sell something very, very cheap. You have a contact of the suppliers of a specific product. Then is the perfect. You will have the competitive advantage from offline, from the fact that you are one of the few people that know the suppliers of that. And then in order to save money and to do it globally, you sell it online. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
You do both, like it's
Yes.
integration.
Yeah.
I just have a question on how you started, whether you had a computer science background or what kind of sparked
Finance.
So what sparked your interest? Like would you recommend us to maybe also
To study?
Start looking into
Hedge.
as a student, I'm really interested in e-commerce. Would you then recommend the person who's interested in e-commerce to study maybe something related to that, or should I start coding? I think that's it.
It's very difficult. I would just go for something that you feel that you are again. Also in that, as in business, again, have a competitive advantage. Study what you know that you are better than your desk mate. Yeah. So go with what of course, if it's something that is impossible to make money out of and you want to make a lot of money, maybe find something else. But I would go for something where you feel that you are better than people around you. Yeah, it's difficult to find it. It's difficult. Sometimes you don't find it, and sometimes you are lucky and you find it.
Do you have a last? We always leave a last sentence.
I really don't know.
Or inspiring
I re-
Also something you can not even not inspiring, just something that you really think it makes sense to tell to young people who are about to maybe become entrepreneurs or something like that.
I think it's always, as I said at the beginning, find what you are better than others. If it's marketing, then of course every business will be easier. If it's something more related to product, still it can become a fantastic opportunity to set up a company related to that. But you definitely have to do something that you know that you are very good at, better than people around.